So we will bring everyone. Yes, we were live streaming before only to Facebook, but now we have let in the participants. Kimathi will be joining in along the way. Wait, I see Kimathi. All right, let me promote him to panelist. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon on this very wonderful and sunny Saturday afternoon. And yes, we're very, very happy, excited to be joined by an amazing team that will be talking about really the structures, the systems within an employment contract that can make a team work better. So today's topic is jobs, people, and culture, navigating the waters of employment. And this is the 4th episode of the Lifestyle Law series that we've been holding with Musyimi and Company Advocates. My name is Kingwa Kamenchu, and very happy to have all of you here, our panelists as well as our participants. Karibuni sana. So I just want to shout out some of the attendees that I see. I see Akwana, I see Doris, Frida, Manji, Mutoni. Karibuni sana, everyone. So guys, the idea here that we want to explore is a question of how is it that we can enable employment contracts to become ways in which businesses can benefit from, in terms of where we see the employee getting valued, and then also seeing how the company then gets valued from this employment contract. And we have two specialists, two amazing ladies, amazing professionals. We have Angela Centra and we have Audrey Kirote. So just before, and then we also have Kimathi Kamenju, who's on board to now give us the legal side of things in terms of these ideas that we have, these insights that we have in terms of what the reality of the employment experience is. How do we then like channel it to become something more structured in terms of a contractual form? So I will just very quickly start by introducing our panelists. And so one of the people that we have is Angela Centra. She is the group HR business partner at Cellulant, and she describes herself in this way. She says, "I am a people and business development enthusiast. I thrive in starting things from scratch, building them and watching them grow to profit. I have combined 15 plus years of work experience with a diverse career in sales, business development, and general management. Currently, a HR practitioner focused on continuous business process improvement, managing large and complex change programs in organizational change and development, while overseeing all HR operational functions in the business. I actively practice in HR, technical capacity building, continuous business process improvement, and system strengthening through holding senior roles. I have been exposed to large and complex business programs, which I believe provides me experience to execute efficiently in an executive level position." So very happy to have you here with us, Angela. Karibu sana, very honored that a lot of us know, I mean, she is with an organization that's at the forefront of fintech, and that's, for those in the entrepreneurship sector, I know that has been like blowing people's minds, because I think it got, Cellulant was awarded, is a one local company that has been, that won the highest funding in the entrepreneurial space. So we are very, very honored and happy to have the kind of expertise that she brings with her. And then we are also joined by an amazing lady called Madame Audrey Kirote, and she is the lead consultant at Harpy HR. Harpy HR helps career builders tell their career stories in a way that brings them fast and lasting professional elevation. And she and her team do this by taking the professionals through CV and cover letter writing, LinkedIn review, job search coaching, and interview coaching. Audrey is a certified human resource practitioner and full member of the Institute of Human Resource Management, IHRM. She has 13 plus years experience in various sectors, including education, government, telco, banking, hospitality, and consultancy. So guys, you can see we have heavyweights. We have national and continental and global heavyweights with us. And this discussion, I also need to say, is also very important in this context of the COVID-19 time, when a lot of people have had to be laid off, when a lot of companies have had to soul sucked. I mean, there's a lot of pain also when companies let go of people. But then I will introduce our last panelist now, who's Kimathi Kamenchu. Kimathi Kamenchu is a Kenyan advocate of 11 years plus post-admission standing. He's a partner in charge and head of corporate, commercial, and property law department at Musyimi and Advocates Company. He has broad experience in the areas of corporate reorganization, telecommunications, and financial services law. The work he handles includes transaction structuring, conduct of legal audit, and contract negotiation. He's also actively involved in drafting and review of laws within the financial services sector and advising clients on existing legal provisions in the financial services sector. Kimathi's expertise also extends to advice on labor-related matters, and in this regard, he provides counsel to various embassies and international organizations. So guys, we are safe. The advisors, the drivers of this matatu, this bus, this airplane, I think are going to ensure that we land in a place where we all would like to go to. So first, I'd like to just give everyone an opportunity to talk about their own perspectives of employment. And Audrey, I really liked how, just from looking at your social media work, your perspective of employment and how you talk about being happy in employment, and the idea that if you work at a job you love, it means you don't have to work a day in your life, and that whole aspect of passion and that whole aspect of thriving and enjoying what you do. So to begin with, maybe you could just give an overview of that philosophy, because we have to start from the philosophy before we then ground it onto the actual whatever. So what is your view of our philosophy of employment today, coming from both Kenya and then also from a global perspective?
Okay, so thank you very much, Kingwa. The reason I began this business that I'm in today, I was employed before. I was a HR person, first in public relations, then crossing over into administration, then into HR. And then I decided to begin a business where I mainly do career development for professionals. And the reason I began this is because I was seeing a lot of professionals struggling, just like I did, struggling in employment, either struggling to get a job, a good job, and then struggling to stay in that job, struggling to thrive in that job. Yeah, so it's sad for me when I see an individual get a job, they're happy, but then after just a few months, you see their hearts plummet, because they're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here. This place doesn't meet my needs. These people are unfair. I don't know. I just found out that the same person we are working at the same level with is paid 3 times what I should be paid. Such small injustices. And the workplace is a place where you are for the biggest part of your day, really. So they should be more of your family. Yeah, they should be more of your family, because they spend more time with you. They know you more than you think that they know you. They know your little nuances. A lot of us have learned to listen to our boss's footsteps just to tell whether the boss is upset or whether they're in high spirits. We watch how they walk in, whether they jaunt in or they pretend they're on the phone because they don't want to see anybody or talk to anybody. We observe. Yeah, because we spend a lot of time there. So it should be time that is happily spent. But unfortunately, in Kenya, what I notice is that a lot of employees are unhappy. They are very unhappy because of the environments that they work in. The environments they work in are oppressive. Then the leaders they work with do not understand that they are dealing with people. So they deal with them like machines, or like a piece in the whole machinery of the organization. So they are not sensitive to them, Yeah, just yesterday I was trying to advise somebody who was telling me that their colleague, who is an accountant for a certain airline, a well-known airline, took money out of, cash, like a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, out of the till, the daily till, and paid for the sister's operation. Yeah, and they did not declare it. Yeah, and then they were caught out a couple of weeks later before they could replace it. And now they're facing summary dismissal because theft is gross misconduct, right? But then what is it that made this person temporarily lose focus of their responsibility as the accountant of the company? So we must be able to be sensitive to our employees when they are going through problems as management. Just ask them, how are they doing? How are you doing? Your sister is going through this. What are your plans as a family, in fundraising? How can we support you as an organization? How can I support you as your manager? So we shouldn't just be so removed. We shouldn't be so removed from our employees. Yeah, and I believe the world is doing much better in treating employees better, especially I would say, well, US in some aspects, not all aspects, because we are ahead in some aspects. Like maternity leave, we are way ahead of the US. Canada is way ahead by many times over. They give their mothers 1 year leave. We give 3 months leave. They sometimes give 3 weeks leave, But then when it comes to other aspects, they are far ahead, like not harassing employees when it comes to recruitment. What was your last salary? Tell us. Will you bring your what is it called? Your payslip. You have to make sure that your payslip says what you're saying. Yeah. So that's why I began this consultancy.
Wow. That was very, very powerful and very profound. And I like how you bring in the idea of the analogy that you use, that you say that like it should be a family. It should be a place of happiness. And I like to reference history and context and the way that we grew up. For example, for our parents, the idea that work is a place of happiness, first of all, it was a very foreign idea. Like, what do you mean go to work to be happy? And then also the concept of the workplace as family, like it's something that I have seen it in small firms, but it's something that, especially maybe in the larger corporate spaces, is something that's a bit, in fact, actually, the workplace is seen as a war zone. It more of has the concept of the war zone, and even some of the language we use, the workforce, like the whole, what you talk about, work office politics, So it's so interesting how you bring that out, and the idea that, because the idea that we have embraced as a collective is what then sits down to the whatever. And I also like that you talk about the people getting employed but then not being happy. And I said because I was employed, but I had like the best job in the world, the best boss in the world, the best colleagues, but I used to feel like I was strangled. So I really like about this, and we're going to go more about the grievances and some of the reasons that employees and are not able to have a perfect fit in terms of with the companies that they work with. So we're going to talk some more about that. For now, I'd like to just bring in Angela to share her thoughts on, because she has like a very rich experience in different sectors and different parts of companies. The question of, for you, Angela, so let's say you as a HR head of HR, you are representing the employer. From your perspective, what are the reasons that there's occasionally that kind of dysfunction? What would you say are the top reasons? And you of course are on the side of the employer, but you're also on the side of the employee. So just from your thoughts, from your experience, what do you think are the top? Would you, if you had like 3 or 1, what would you say? Let's say 1. Let's say what is the top reason for this disharmony between employees and their employer?
That is such a broad question. There could be hundreds of reasons why there's disharmony. And sometimes those reasons, you fix one and then 99 others break. But from my own experience, what I have found to be the biggest cause of disharmony actually is how you've designed your organization. You know, once you understand what is your strategy, a good organization then goes ahead to define what are going to be our structures, what are going to be our processes, make sure that everyone understands their role, their responsibilities, and then you define what are all of the norms that are expected here, how should we behave, what's our culture going to be. So typically what happens is that organizations go about doing this ad hoc. So you have your strategy, and then you figure out, I need 3 guys. And then you go out and hire these 3 guys, and then the 3 guys come in, and maybe you don't even like them, or maybe they don't even get along, but then it's not stated. You haven't figured out what's everyone responsible for. What are their decision rights? Like, what does the CFO get to decide versus the head of HR get to decide? What does the CTO get to decide? What are the limits? And then if we have a conflict, how do we solve it?
Wow.
So those kinds of things are actually what I find to be simply the biggest causes of dysfunction in an organization, because, you know, the way you're describing it as a family, I for myself, a healthy working environment is like an organism. It's a cell. Things work because they have been designed to work a certain way. The heart knows what it needs to do. The lungs know what they need to do, and nobody's overstepping. But often organizations allow these things to evolve on their own. So from my perspective, a toxic environment is when everything is out of sync. You have bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake.
Yeah.
You have autocracy for the sake of it. You know, to the point that an employee cannot make a simple decision within their domain. The environment is fear-inducing, it's controlling, there's a lack of trust, both for leadership and employees. All of these things, for me, are what contribute to a dysfunctional working environment. So I think for it to be really functional, you have to be a lot more deliberate to design everything, all the way from your strategy, your processes, your structures, how you're going to go pay people. Like that example that Audrey gave, it's like, why should one person earn 3 times more for the same job?
Wow.
That's an organizational design problem, that
Wow.
someone is not being deliberate about these decisions.
Oh, wow. I love the design approach. I think you have a very innovative, I like, you come from a space, or rather the approach you're giving it is very innovative, which is important, because I think a lot of companies, it's very easy to just copy paste. Like you said, that a company says we need 5 people, and then you just go out and bring in people. So, and I think one of the really big things that one of the reasons I'm very excited to have you on board is because you represent the new face of Kenya. Like, you know, the guys in the fintech space, the new entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is a space where there's a lot of thinking forward, a lot of design thinking rather than copy paste, rather than bureaucracy. So that's really, really a lot of good food for thought. The idea that a healthy working organization is like an organism, it's like a cell. Because yeah, if it's like everyone knows what they're supposed to do, it's not about follow up, it's not about that kind of thing. So that's really profound. Thank you for that. I'd like to bring it again to Audrey, and to just talk about how does one design their organization? Like, what is a process for one designing especially the HR part of things? How does one do that in a way that it's a win-win for everyone? And also, in a sort of as part, an addendum to that would be for those people the employees who get into a place and there's like a mismatch. how would an organization be designed such that such kind of thing is like almost impossible to happen? So maybe starting from how does one organize actually the whole thing, how does one organize to prevent that kind of mismatch and dysfunction? How does one design?
Okay. So just like Angela said, when you're beginning an organization, you have this certain work that you are doing, and then you realize, oh, you can't do everything by yourself. Now you need people on board. So you need 3 people. Then you go out and hire the 3 people. So then what we are going to talk about is how do you go about, establishing who should get hired, First of all, what should lead, who should get hired is the work that is to be done, yeah? You should first of all hire the people who will produce or give the product so that the product is now sold. I once worked for a company. Let me not give away which company it was. I was about to give the number, where exactly the number of companies it was. So when I checked in there, I just noticed it was a startup and we were all managers. 40 people, like they're telling us, oh, we're opening our doors. And we're 40 people, most of us managers. There's HR, there's finance, there's procurement, there is everybody else. You're almost even having somebody to open the door, like, yeah. But there was no
opening manager.
Yeah, the opening manager. But there was no production team. It was a software development organization, I guess much like where Angela works. It was like an aspiring fintech. But there were no developers. Yeah, those are the people the startup should have started with. So when I got there, I was like, okay, so where are our developers? So then I had to push the management. Now let's get the developers so that we can start getting this product out that you want, But then again, the organization has to be confident in its product. They have to be confident in what they're pushing out, because at that point, the company did not even want to reveal what the product was because they were afraid it would be stolen.
Wow.
Those big, grand ideas that you fear will be stolen. So if you're holding your product like this, you can't push it out to the market. Then it will not become a viable business. Then it will not be known by the market. It won't be appreciated by the market. It won't be rewarded by the market in terms of them buying in. So you won't even have money to pay your staff, okay? So when you're designing that, those are some of the considerations you need to make. Then you also need to consider, are these people qualified for the roles that you need them for? And you don't have just to take the normal qualifications that it has to have a degree, no. If it is a job where they need to go and dig for fiber, do they need a degree for that? They don't need a degree for that, but you need somebody with experience of which wires to join, isn't it? Yeah, if you need somebody to do cashiering, they might not need a degree for that, yeah, unless maybe they are dealing with superior levels of clients, maybe corporates. Yeah, maybe what they need is just some customer service training. But the sad thing is, in this country, we've gotten to a place where people who do not have degrees feel like they cannot get a job, or even a good job at that, which is very, very sad, because in other developed countries, even just high school graduates get really, really good jobs in the bank and all that. Yeah, so I don't know. I've said to make inroads into that. I'm not sure I've fully answered the question.
I think that fairly covers it. Angela, how for you on the other side of things, what should an employer consider if they want to get maximum productivity? Like how do you guys approach it? How do you guys approach it in terms of from the hiring process? Because that possibly is where it starts. Correct me if I am wrong. So how does so maybe walk us through that journey of having a vacancy and then the end point of having a very highly performing and motivated and enthusiastic staff member? What does that journey look like?
So, so I'll piggyback a little bit on what Audrey was saying. What determines who you hire when you think about the various models of designing your organization? Generally, you will start at your strategy. So like that organizational example she gave us, they were a software engineer. So once you've figured out your strategy, then the next thing is say, okay, so what capabilities do I need? So those capabilities are what will then determine who you hire. Because first, so the capability was designing software, managing products, and et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't so much HR or door opening or administration. It was really around just the core functionality of building a product. So that capability is what then tells you what types of people do I want to have? What skill sets do they have? Where can I find them? What are their competencies? So for me, productivity, when I think about productivity, it's about finding the right balance of an employee who's in the right role with the right skill set and having clarity about what is expected of them to deliver. So like if they had had Audrey to do their software engineering and she came in as a HR person, then the hiring manager would say, Audrey is very unproductive, but she's in the wrong role, wrong skill set, and she possibly doesn't even know, okay, what did you expect me to deliver at the end of the day? So productivity is a function of the whole organization. So if your strategy, number one, is not clear, then there's no way your employees can be productive. If they don't have defined roles and responsibilities. So for example, Audrey came in, she's supposed to be HR. Now she's being told she has to do the P&L statements, she has to open the doors, she's got to manage the software engineers. And make various decisions that are not within what she was being hired to do. The whole workforce will be unproductive. So productivity is it's both a function of your system and also the individual. So if your organization is designed right, then your employees will be productive because they come in knowing this is what you expect me to do. In fact, in my own experience as a performance manager, half the time when you have someone who's not performing in their job, it's because the clarity of what they're supposed to be delivered has not been explained to them. So maybe something has changed in the organization, they are doing this kind of work, and now everything has changed, but no one has clarified for them, actually, I want you to deliver this now. You've not sat them down and given them a very specific job description and explained to them, this is how I want you to deliver for me. I want you to be giving me X things in X time, every day or every week or every month. So it becomes a little bit ambiguous. But once you clarify what is your expectation from the employee, I find that then if the employee is a good one, they're very productive. So there are very few bad apples in the organization who don't want to work, but it's very easy to weed them out once you have clarified what it is you expect from them to deliver. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that. I like how you bring out the issue of, first of all, the job description, the deliverables, and the expectations. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how probably the whole question of even of the entry point, because we've seen in the past where people bring in their friends or their relatives, and that kind of thing, and then everything just crashes. So we're going to come back to that on audio, I think. So now, Kimathi, because this is your area where you guys draw up the employment contract. So if a firm is coming, okay, first of all, if I'm an entrepreneur and I know what I want, like I have my strategy, as Angela has mentioned, and I know what I want the person that I'm bringing on board to deliver. How do I put that into the employment contract such that the accountability can be enabled, such that it's something that I can hold this person to account with, I can hold the person to account with, and also they can hold me to account in terms of the expectation that they have for me, because that's another thing also, that sometimes we bring that the employers are the ones who actually end up being the ones being the weakest link, sort of letting down the employee. So how does one do that? Does one just get something on the internet, copy paste, or like if I was coming to your farm and saying, I need someone, how do you go about this?
All right, thanks Kingwanda. I've been really amazed just listening into the journeys by both Audrey and Angela. I've had some level of view of their career journey, so I'm amazingly proud of them. I mean, where they are. And you too, Kengwa, you may remember I also have some front row seats as far as you go. But a good question you've asked about employment contracts. I mean, let's just first answer it from the perspective of what the Act provides. But remember, the Act makes certain provisions, but in addition to what the Act provides, there are certain things you need to have in place to ensure those provisions are actualized. So first of all, the Employment Act recognizes both oral and written contracts. Oral contracts being contracts which are settled verbally, which have not been documented in writing, and then written contracts being the ones that are actually put into writing in proper. The law is such that if you are working or your contract runs for a period longer than 3 months, or you will be starting an assignment, work that is expected to go beyond the period of 3 months, then you cannot settle at oral contracts. You need to have written contracts that are in place. So that's number one. The law does provide that you need to have written contracts if the contract is for a period longer than 3 months, or if the work that one will be doing is reasonably expected to be for a period of longer than 3 months, then that would be there. And there are various things that would, I mean, if it's a project which I'm hiring you, I've got funding for a project which I know is going to run for 12 months, obviously, that means that your job contract will likely run for the entire duration of 12 months, and as such, ought to be documented in writing. So that's number one, that oral, written. Now, when you come to written, and I like the question you've asked, should I just download it off the internet and then say, voila, here you go, sign here, very good. After all, I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have time to talk to lawyers and that kind of thing. The Act does provide for specific matters in employment contracts. And Audrey talked about different contexts. She talked about the US, she talked about Canada. Many times you'll find the templates that are available online are templates that relate more in those jurisdictions. Again, I've seen people go perhaps to their parents if they were running businesses, or their uncles, and say, hey, uncle or auntie, I know you run a business and I know you've done contracts. Why don't you give me, so that then I draft that. Now, the challenge with that other one is that very likely you'll find that those are contracts that were settled under the previous legal regime. Because this Employment Act that we have, which has modernized our labor practices, is of 2007. So you'll find perhaps the previous ones which are not responsive to the requirements of the law. What are the key things, if you're drafting an employment contract, what are the key things that you need to bear in mind? First of all, you must clearly identify the parties who are entering into the employment contract. That's the employer and the employee. And it's important to note that an employment contract is personal, all right? So I can't say in one employment contract, I'm summarizing time, since Angela and Audrey have the same JD, let's sign one contract. No. It's a contract with Angela, it's a contract with Audrey that needs to be settled. So identify the parties, note that an employment contract is personal to the parties. A third thing that is supposed to be there is that you need to define the work for which one, I mean, if you're the employee, what you're being signed up for. If you're the employer, what you're signing up somebody for. But not just the work, but the job description, the particulars of the job description. You need to not just say, this is your title, but also this is what it means. And this will tie in quite a bit to what Angela was talking about in terms of performance management in the context of how to weed out those who are productive and those who are not productive. Because with a job description, then you're then able to then build on that. And we'll come to that because I said, let's start with the law, but then there are the secondary things to the law. So and parties, note that it's personal to the parties, the job title, the job description as far as it goes. The other thing that we put in employment contracts is the place of work. Where will you be working? For, say, people who are doing more administrative work, let's take an organization like Angela's organization, you might have people who are stationed more at the office, but then you may want people, because I mean, it's like tech business, and you're moving around people here and there. I mean, it could be within country or outside the country. So when you say place of work there, you need then to be flexible to understand what you're recruiting somebody for, because you don't want to, as Audrey was suggesting about people who are laying fiber cables, you don't want them to say, my place of work is in Lavington on Agwingskodek. Why am I in Ongata Rongai laying fiber? And it sounds a bit ridiculous, but Andy will tell you, when managing HR kind of things, you don't want to take anything for granted. Wow. So place of work is important. It's important to give, and these are now specifically provided in the Act, you need to give the employees gender, their date of birth, and their address. I think those are the 3 mandatory requirements that you need to include, and we usually have them in a schedule to the employment contract: date of birth, their gender, and their residential particulars. We then would ordinarily have that is put there. Within the contract, of course, you'll have a very important provision for employees, which is remuneration. And it's not just for employees, it's also for employers. It's important that remuneration is not looked at just as an employee matter, it's also an employer, because an employer is managing, he's asking the employee to render their services in exchange for something in particular. And this is important, and you realize, and maybe Angela has interacted with this, when you're doing things like budgeting, HR for most organizations is a critical amount. I mean, let's take the government of Kenya, which is the single largest employer in the country. About 50% of the collections that come into the country, 50 to 60%, go towards salaries. Salaries of government employees, your cabinet secretaries, going all the way down to your drivers. You have all these who are captured there. So you can't ignore that provision as an employer. You need to give its adequate honor to that particular provision, because that is what uses you to manage. But also, there's a question of liability, because under the Employment Act, it is actually a criminal offense to fail to pay an employee their employment dues. And I have had, in certain instances, to go and assist the employers who have not been able to pay their employees, in a sense, have not been careful about it. When I say have not been careful about it, have not engaged with the employee and said, we are suffering this kind of cash flows. And the employee takes them to the labor office. And the labor office, next thing you know, is that they have gone and they've lodged a complaint at the Milimani law courts, and you're required to show up to answer to a crime of failure to pay employment dues. So it's important for you even to manage risk. Other things that we would contain in the employment contracts are matters such as additional benefits. And when Audrey is, because Audrey's work is more around career building, career coaching, these are big things when people are negotiating. What insurance cover am I getting? Am I getting any pension benefit over and above NSSF? Am I getting some cover which goes to my family? Am I getting life insurance? Will I get access to a mortgage? And that kind of thing. So these are things that, again, you would put in the employment contract just to be sure. And then also a very important thing is the matter of leave, that is your holidays. And people have got different kind of levels of leave. Today I was actually discussing with somebody about how some people manage the Christmas holiday. So some offices, they say that when we close for Christmas, those are days of corporate leave. So apart from the public holidays, which are your entitlement, Christmas Day and New Year's Day, the days that you are off will count towards your annual leave. Now, some people do that. Others say, because we are closed, we are not going to count those days. But it's important to have this captured in the employment contract so that there is clarity as to when people are there. Now, a very important clause for both employer and employee, but mainly for employer, are clauses on confidentiality. And Angela works in a tech business. So you find tech businesses, may not just have it in an employment contract. They may even have you sign a separate document recognizing that any creations that you make while under our employment are not yours, okay? So that the employee who was working for Zoom Communications, who came up with the idea of Zoom US, is not saying, no, this is mine, everybody is using mine, and that kind of thing. No. Because your intellectual property, if it's generated as part of your employment responsibility, it forms part and parcel of that.
Is that copyright, or what is that?
Yes, it would be copyright. In the US, you have sometimes software moving towards patents, but it's copyright. But then take, for example, creatives, people who are in the creative space who are designing logos for customers, as far as that goes. Now, logos are trademark. So you can't have somebody designing a trademark, say, for Coca-Cola, and then running around saying, I've resigned and I'm now retiring because I own a logo, a trademark, which will pay me into eternity and sort me to the 4th generation, okay? So that is a thing that one needs to be careful about as far as it goes. But different employment contracts, you'll find that, say, for senior managers, is a bit more of detail that goes into the employment contract as opposed to line staff. Sometimes it's because of managing exposure. Other times it's because you need to clearly set out things. As an example, senior managers will have a longer notice period than people who are not senior managers, because the idea is to avoid disruptions in the organization. You want to have that kind of thing. For chief executive officers, you have a lot of recognition of, yes, we have the job contract, but there's other jurisprudence, other practices that come into play. For example, a senior chief executive who is approaching retirement, and I'm sure Audrey is familiar with this. There's something in the UK which they call, we are sending you on gardening leave, so to speak. A good example, I'm like our Chief Justice, and this is common in government offices, where as you're approaching the last few months, you then relinquish your position and take leave in the last few months. I mean, it's not that you are actually gardening, but it's actually one which you are in the space where you can continue providing support to the organization, but you're not physically there, so that the organization is kind of like weaning off you, because many times people who are in those positions, like Audrey says, your nuances, we know how you walk. I mean, we hear when you walk in, we know that those are Kimati's shoes. Like this person, he bestrides like a colossus, for lack of a not me, but generally a CEO. That would be it. So those are some of the contents of an employment contract, which I thought I should highlight. And like I've said, it's mutual. Now, at the second level, there are the policies and procedures that support the employment contract. So as an example, you could say that, fine, you could be summarily dismissed for 1, 2, 3, but then you have an HR, a human resource policy, or a people and culture policy that then prescribes what are the various measures. In some organizations, you get off with a slap on the wrist, a warning letter. In others, there is suspension. In others, you can be terminated for certain things. And those then would be detailed in a policy. And that policy would not just set the grounds, but will also provide the procedure. What do we do if we're having a disciplinary case? We issue a notice to show cause. But HR policy is not just about the bad things. HR policy is also about the good things. So for example, some HR policies provide for service pay and say that if you've worked here for longer than 10 years, we'll compute your service pay at maybe 20 days per month. If you've worked for less than 10 years, we'll compute your service pay at 15 days per month, as far as that goes. Your policy could also provide, and one of the things I expect as we move out of the corona pandemic is that there'll be increasing flexibility in work hours, because people realize that one doesn't need to be physically at the office. So some policies then say that so long as you do 25 in-office hours in a week, the other 15, 30 hours, you're free to determine how that kind of thing. So you see, like I'm saying, the policy is not a document that is in a corner just to be brought out to discipline the employee. It has that other aspect. So that's the kind of thing. Then of course there are what one would call the soft issues. A good example, like we closed office yesterday. Don't ask me why I'm in the office, but yes, we closed office yesterday. And as part of office closure, you'll have maybe a meal for employees, which may not be in the contract. You won't say that on the last Friday of every year we'll have nyama choma and fries. No, you might not say that, but these are things that both Angela and Audrey will tell you are just as important as the back and forth, things that would motivate guys that would do that. They also things like career progression, somebody having a defined career progression plan, knowing that when I'm here, I move to this next place, I move to this next place. And for us as employers, we've been challenged at certain instances and been told, guys, you're not very clear. How does one move from being a pupil to an associate, to a senior associate, to a partner? What's the plan? And these are things that I'm saying are not in the Employment Act, but are things that are tools that are important to manage. I guess I've said quite a bit, so let me take a back step at that point, just in case there's any other question.
Oh my God, that's powerful. I've been fully schooled. I feel like I can go to a law school and start teaching them about employment law. Thank you so much for that, Kimathi. Very, like you just really outlined it from beginning to the end in terms of the steps, that it's the parties and the work needs, the work and the job description needs to be put down, the job title, the time period if it's a project, the remuneration, additional benefits, leave, confidentiality, termination, and policies and procedures. So that was humongously very helpful. I've gained a lot from that. And there's two areas that I see that you've sparked questions, or rather areas that I want to also put to Angela and Audrey. And one was a question of company culture, and which you mentioned is a very important thing. In fact, one of the buzzwords in the whole idea that culture eats something for lunch. Who knows that phrase?
Culture eats strategy for lunch.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. And I saw you nodding, Angela, was when he was talking about some of the things that might look non-essential, but actually like Christmas parties or small things. And it also brings us back to the whole idea that Audrey brought up of a company as a family. So Angela, how does one set up culture? How does one design the work culture such that, first of all, such that we no longer have that, for example, such that you no longer have miserable employees, such that people are so motivated, like those places where people are like, they cannot wait to go to work. And I never used to believe that was possible, but I know it is. And I've seen it. So how do we design our organizations so that our team members feel that it's no longer that thing of just another Monday morning, that song. That it's no longer that whole 95 like Monday blues and everything. But how does work become a place for, almost, to use this very activist word, a place for liberation? How do we design the workspace to be like that, Angela?
It's a difficult one, but it's also, it literally, can I say, culture first starts with the fundamental belief of the founders of the organization. Wow. So what do they believe about the world? For it to be possible. So, my views, my personality when I'm starting a business kind of starts to infuse the culture of my business. So it almost goes all the way back to the founding of the organization. But once you have a very mature organization, you then go ahead and start to think about, again, your vision, your purpose. Why are we here? Why are we coming together to do what it is we stated we want to do? And what's our mission? And then what do we value? So once you figure out what are the things we value, then you begin to kind of infuse that into your organizational design.
Yeah.
Your own culture will define how you develop strategy. Your own culture will define how you hire people. It will define so many things. So it has it's both intangible and also very tangible. And typically, when you want to design it or think about it tangibly, you always start with just thinking about what are the things that are going to make up culture for my organization. And it's everything that you do. So you'll typically start with your vision, your mission, your values, you articulate those. And then now you go into looking at how are my people treated? How does my leadership express care for the people that I work with? What do I believe to be true of my workers? So if I believe that my workers are just here to be cogs, I pay them, they should just be very happy with the salary I give them. Can they just not complain? It will inform your culture. But if you believe that they're your partners, that they have just as much as a stake in the organization as you do, it will also define the culture of how you treat them. The kinds of goals you set out, and largely also the purpose of the organization. I think most people ascribe to organizations that have a higher purpose than just profit. And if you ascribe to that, then it means that you will then ensure that you're going to build an organization that cares for shareholders, for employees, for its customers, for the community. That will inform your culture. So I don't think I've answered it. That's how you build it. I was giving you all of the things that make up culture, but it starts with what you believe to be true of the world. What are your principles that you hold? And then you begin to infuse this in the way you have designed your organization.
Oh my gosh, so that really captures it, because it's about philosophy of the founder, the founding members.
Yeah, and then at a certain stage of maturity, it's almost the philosophy of your leadership, your shareholders. Why did they all come together to form this organization, and what does it mean for them? And then that then begins to inform the culture.
That is profound. That is really, really profound. Thank you for that. Audrey, what makes, you talked about the example you gave of people who get employed, but then a year later, they are like on a downhill slide. What makes someone suffer in employment? What's the cause? And I'll also give my own example, but I'd be interested to hear your perspective. Oh, maybe you can unmute. Maybe you could kindly unmute. Thank you.
So when you're getting into an organization, any organization, you're on adrenaline. First of all, the adrenaline is from when you are interviewing. You have your best foot forward. And hopefully they won't keep you too long before they call you to begin work, so that you're still on that adrenaline during your probation. You really want to show your best, to show up at your best. But then now, during probation, you start to learn some things, from your colleagues. You ask them things, they're like, no, you take time, observe. You observe, you just wait. You will know. Then now you get to find out things like those pay injustices. You get to find out that people are so disgruntled because they are not promoted, so there's no growth in the organization. People are not promoted. People are always coming from outside. That guy has been on track to be promoted for the last how many years, is not being promoted. Obviously, that is not a good environment. Then some other injustices come from lack of equity, which comes from lack of proper application of policies and procedures, like Angela mentioned. If you don't have policies, or if you just choose not to apply those policies and procedures, policies bring equity. Yeah, everybody is treated the same. When it comes to holidays, who gets to go, who gets to work during holidays? If it comes to Sabbath, is everybody's Sabbath respected? Normal Christians, SDAs, Muslims, Hindus, are their Sabbaths respected? It's very important for the organization to make steps to respect, to show that they respect all their employees and their various walks of faith and their various cultures. And then there is also the big one in the room nowadays that we're talking about, not so loudly, LGBTQ. How do we handle these people? How do we respect them for what they bring as professionals, even if we do not necessarily agree with their sort of lifestyle. Yeah. So set me right on the question again. What was I answering?
The question of what makes someone suffer in employment, like the examples you gave. What makes someone suffer rather than thrive?
Yes. So it's just those small injustices. And then another thing that makes them suffer is the knowledge that they are not important to the leadership of the organization. For sure, culture does eat strategy for breakfast, yeah? What people in an organization do oftenly, even if you set what kind of strategy, that culture will win the day. So it's very important for the leadership of an organization to uproot any poor culture that is within the organization. When they just catch sight of it, they need to deal with it there and there. Otherwise, it will just upset everything else that they are trying to build. So people are sensitive. They are not cogs. They are very intuitive. They can see. They are watching. So when you pay lip service and you say, oh, we're fixing this and this. In fact, we are doing a job evaluation. We're doing a salary harmonization exercise, and they never see the results of this. They never feel impacted by this. Then they start thinking, okay, these people are just doing PR on us. So they turn you off. You know, an organization is very much like a parent and their children. You are the parent. So if your child always perceives that whenever they ask you for something, you say, okay, yeah, we'll do it soon. We'll do it tomorrow. In fact, yeah, we'll do it next time. And you never do it. They just tune you out. By the way, they forget about you. They just go on with their lives as normal. But then they start looking out and finding another person who appreciates them. Yeah, that's what I would say about why employees are unhappy.
What about, because I'm sure we've seen this, we've seen instances where someone gets everything, like you're given everything, you're given all the support you need, you're given the salary you demand, but then you're still not happy.
Okay. Now that could be a mismatch between your personal mission, your personal goals, and the organizational goals. Okay, so the organization might have a very noble vision. Let's say to defeat, hunger in Africa. But you, even when you see a hungry person, you're never moved. You just pass them. You
Steal from the begging bowl.
You can even eat in front of them and you feel nothing. So that mission does not relate to you personally. Well, there's somebody else who cannot eat. Well, they know that there is somebody hungry, like the watchman uko chini anasikia baridi. They will always send down tea. They will always pass, and when they are buying something from the market, they buy a mango for the guy. So you need to find what fires you up. If that vision is not firing up, it's not inspiring you, you're probably in the wrong place. So it's important to listen to yourself as an individual and find out where it is you really need to be.
Yeah, that's very true.
I just 100 agree with you on that, because my struggle was actually about that. And I think I was too embarrassed to, because there was a HR department, I could have gone to it, but I think I was thinking like it was my failure rather than a mismatch. So yeah, so that's quite illuminating. And I liked what Angela talked about earlier about care, about, she brought in the word care, a very, very important word, about the concept of that organizations are actually supposed to, there has to be a component of care. And Audrey, I also liked the analogy you gave of like the family, the parents, that's supposed to be the parents. So Angela, how does one set up a company that people feel fully magnetized? And I ask this, again, very happy that you're coming from the tech sector, because some of the examples that we have in terms of employee innovation in terms of HR policies, globally as things that we've been seeing in Silicon Valley. And you guys are like our Silicon Valley of our Silicon Savannah. So like when we watch, those who watch documentaries and watch movies on like the tech world, we see like employment spaces are not just employment spaces, like they're like play spaces. Like there's a room if you want to go sleep, there's a pool table all over the place, like if you want to go in at 2 a.m. So how does one set from your, and I feel like you guys also have that similar spirit, that because I think in the tech world that sense of openness and freeness is quite necessary and central. So how does one set up a company that people feel not only just enthusiastic about, but they feel magnetized about, that it's not that, oh my God, it's Monday, I have to go to work, but that they're being chased away, that dude, you need to sleep, or mama, madam, go home to your family. So how does one set up, what are the tips? Like, you know, there's a question of the carrot stick. So what are the tips that you guys have learned to keep your team fully on, like magnetized continually? Because I suspect, given also your own performance as a company, there has to be, a thriving company cannot survive without a thriving team. So how have you guys been able to just put all that, mix all that together?
I think it's a work in progress, because you have to look at the stage of the organization. But then you also have to look at the employees and the stage of the employees. Like when you look at the Silicon Valley stories with the pool tables, sleep, you're talking about Google, which is one of the largest, most profitable organization in the world. So for them, those kinds of things, like, no brainer. But then for other organizations, you have to look at some type of personalization. Who is my core staff? What's their age demographic? What really matters to them? Like if your demographic right now is young, just getting married, it also means pool tables might not matter as much as how much parental leave you give them, how much flexibility you put into the work. Like, are they able to telecommute? Are they able to have flexible hours? Can they pick up their kids from school?
Childcare in the office.
Childcare in the office. Those kinds of things. So even for an organization, I think you have to personalize what really matters to your demographic. You look at them, where are they at currently? So I think when you're a much younger organization, techies are just coming in from graduate school, it's easy to give them the pool tables, a place to relax. Maybe for some of us older ones, a nap room might really, really work. You just need 1 hour afternoon siesta, and then you're able to work again. So,
massage room with a masseur. Yeah.
And then for working moms, I mean, always, really being considerate about their working hours, being able to have spaces for them if they're breastfeeding to express, not having to do it in the toilet or the closet, cupboard, those kinds of things. So they are very small, but they're personalized, because then, you're looking at every individual and saying, this is my core demographic, this is what they need, and this is what I'm going to provide for them. And even now, when you even design your benefits, you start to think about, do they care more about pensions? Do they care more about, us providing them loan facilities? They're just getting on into life. How do we engage providers to provide them better health insurance? Because now he's got a wife, he's got a kid, those kind of costs come into his life. So what type of cover are we going to provide? Make sure that they can get the right kind of services. So it's really about personalizing the experience by understanding who's your core workforce. And it will be different. It will be different for different organizations. In order for you to really make your space valuable to your employees, you'll have to personalize some of those things. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of good food for thought there, especially, because different demographics will want different things. So that's really, really, really good food for thought. Perhaps I'd like to ask Kimathi on the question of, we'll all have rounds on this issue of salaries. Also, just even as I continue, I want to mention that I acknowledge our colleagues, our participants here, and I see there's a question, and I also want to encourage you guys to ask questions. I'm so excited by this discussion, guys. Usually I'm roping all the participants in the previous discussion, but this one I think I just have so much curiosity, and I'm learning so much that I'm sorry, I seem to be forgetting you guys. So guys, please do feel free to put in your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, or your comments, and we shall come back to them. So for now, let's talk about salary and the negotiation for salary. And I think that money is a very sensitive subject. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's an aspect of people overvaluing themselves, there's the aspect of people undervaluing themselves. How does one, actually maybe this question is more for Audrey, we'll have everyone talk about it, but how does one negotiate for their salary? So actually, for you, Audrey, the question would be, how does one negotiate for their salary? And then for Angela would be the question of, how does an employer set the salary?
Okay. So I wish Angela could talk first, then I talk. But,
I'm happy to. I think for most employers, we generally what you do is you look at the market first, and then you look at the roles that you've got, and then how you grade them internally, just based on their experience, the skills they're bringing in, the impact they have. So for example, like a manager, you'll obviously pay your manager a little bit more than the person that they're managing because you've given them additional responsibility. You will find some skill sets that are rare in the market, like maybe right now, can I say like data specialists, all of these guys who are doing AI, machine learning, those guys are pretty rare. So they can actually command the pay themselves, and you as an employer will have to follow what they are, what they are coming into the market with. But generally, most organizations then look at the market and then they have a pay philosophy. So our pay philosophy is either we will pay at the bottom of the market, and this is what we expect to provide our employees, or we will pay in the middle of the market, generally on average what everyone is paying, or we will pay at the top of the market because we want to attract. So each of them has pros and cons. So it really depends on the organization, but generally organizations will determine their pay philosophy first. How do we want to pay and remunerate our people? What types of jobs? Which ones do we value more than others? And then, between levels of seniority, skill set, how will we pay those? And then you set yourself a budget.
I like what you're saying about pay philosophy, because it also goes back to what you had earlier said about the vision, the purpose of the organization, and what the employee thinks of their employee. So that's, I like how that ties in. Thanks for that, Angela. Yes, Audrey.
Yeah. So an organization needs to know how much it is they intend to pay, even when they are setting up the advert. They shouldn't come waiting. They shouldn't be, reactionary? They shouldn't just come and wait to be told by people how much they want to earn. They need to have done their homework. They need to have done workforce planning. They need to know that they have a real need for this particular role. It's not that every vacancy that appears, every person that leaves has to be replaced. Things could have changed, and they might actually be able to hack not having one more person in the department because the duties have changed. And then there are also other ways to engage staff. Just make sure that you expand their roles a little bit so that they're learning new things. They're taking on new responsibilities and learning new things. So an organization really does need to do their homework before they come to the negotiation table. So I really disagree with the way we do negotiation in this country, where we just point blank stare down the candidate and ask them, what was your last salary? And then what is your salary expectation? So if I say the last salary was 50,000, but I want 150,000, they'll be like, how do you want 3 times what you were earning? How does somebody get 3? You know, that's where the argument starts. All right. And my last salary, the 50,000 that I was earning, has nothing to do with the particular role that you are offering. You should value the job as the employer and tell me, I value my job from this point to this point. Like, this is the range of salary we are offering for this role. And mostly it is given as a range because of the factors that Angela has talked about. You will find that people of varying experience levels will apply for the job. People of varying qualifications, people who have varying backgrounds. You might find somebody who is spot on in that they've worked in exactly such a company before, so they know exactly what that job is about, while somebody else is more of an outlier. Yeah, they'll have a higher landing curve. Yeah. So then that is what determines how much you give the person within that range. So then what I would encourage candidates to do is not to encourage the discussion of their past salary, okay? Because some in this country are even having a problem stepping back on salary. Yeah, because they want to progress, they want to grow in terms of responsibilities, and maybe they have targeted a certain company. They say, here I will grow, I don't mind taking a step back in salary. But when they go for the interviews, they're always being asked, how much are you earning? Oh, you're too expensive for us. But they're, no, don't worry about it, I don't mind. But they're like, no, totally, you're overqualified, you know. Then the discussion ends there. Wow. So discussion of past salary should just be discouraged. And as employees in this country, we should start agitating for a law that will, and Kimathi, we should start agitating for a law that will remove, you know, will totally negate this discussion of past salary. It is enough. It has really messed a lot of people up. We're not moving forward. And in the US, there are so many states already that have declared this. So yeah, to be against the law. Like if somebody asks you about your salary, that is discrimination. Your past salary, that is part of discrimination. So I would wish to see the Institute of Human Resource Management, our beloved institute, just start to take action on this matter.
You know what I like about what you're saying is you're pointing to, it's like there's a fear of valuing. It's like a fear companies, organizations have of valuing the person and the role. And so then the interview process is like a sword fight.
not a fear. It's not a fear. It is something that unfortunately has grown out of our culture as Kenyans. We are becoming, or we are, a man-eat-man society.
Wow. Oh, you don't think we've always been? Do you think it's gotten worse?
Yeah, of course, it's gotten worse. We can't have been a man-eat-man society because at the time when we were getting independence, there were people who were willing to risk their skin for this country. They were willing to live in the forest and to suffer, and their families to be cut down because they were fighters for a cause. But now we are all about what we want. Benefit, my benefit, I have to benefit over everyone else. Okay? So we know when we advertise for a role, you have an accounting position. You will get somebody who quotes 150, and you will get somebody who quotes 20 or even 10, just because they have never been able to get a job. So then you will pick the guy who quoted 10, just because there can always be the lowest, the lowest bid, and that is the unfortunate thing. But then you also end up compromising whatever you bring on the table, because then this person might not fit into your culture. They might not be able to reach the kind of goals that you
Yes.
for the company. They might not be able to execute like you would want, but you went for the lowest bidder. Yeah.
And you know what they say, that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So
You get monkeys.
I'm seeing a question from Frida. So I'm just going to put the last question, still related to money, to Kimathi. It's a question of, so maybe it may not even be so much a legal question, but more of an economic question. So I know law firms have this, the business model of law firms is sort of like there's a partnership kind of way. Like it's not so much, yes, you are employed, but also you are part of it, like with time. And I've been wondering about this, about the model of our organizations, because if we are going to be families, if our organizations are going to be like families, like Audrey talks about, if we're going to be, if organizations are going to be like places of actual care, as Angela mentioned, treating an employee like we can kick you out any day. I feel like there's danger there. I don't know, I just feel like there's a bit of at the back of my head, there's a bit of a danger. Like I would feel more better if I felt valued enough to say that the way law firms do of, yes, if you're here for like 5 years, you're promoted to status, 10 years, you're promoted to status. Later on, you can even become a partner, meaning that you are like part and parcel of this company, even in terms of your stake. Because for me, that's very much about valuing the person, that you have not just given your life for this, and then when age of retirement comes, we throw you out. And I say this because in the industry that I've been in, and I am in the media industry, we have examples of very senior, like managing editors get thrown out, and a few years later they are like broke and begging and asking for support, even for their medical bills and that kind of thing. So, Kimathi, how does that work? What is the model? And also, Angela and Audrey, you can chime in if you have an idea of what are possible models for the future. Even this could be like an innovative dreaming session moving forward. Like, how can we structure organizations such that employees feel part and parcel, that you're not just here and then when something bad happens, you're going to be kicked out to the curb?
Yeah, so Kingwa, and thank you for asking that question. I'll perhaps start with the last one, what you shared about the media fraternity. And to be fair, I guess for the media fraternity, just because these are peers who are struggling, they'll probably get more airtime than many other people who are in similar circumstances, who have been working hard in organizations, but really they haven't got the sweat of their brow. Now, I think first of all, especially on the area of medical, I honestly would say that that's a challenge of our system as a country. I think the basics as a country, every person should have excellent medical care. Everyone should be guaranteed of at least a first degree university degree, and then everybody should be guaranteed security. And it shouldn't matter whether you worked in a media organization or you are a lawyer and that kind of thing. I mean, a heart condition is a heart condition. If I have a heart condition and I'm a primary school teacher somewhere in Garbatula, my heart condition is not different from somebody else who perhaps has a huge medical policy working in Nairobi. And I think that's more a question of justice of the society, asking, is that least member of society able to access the things that are necessary for them to live? So yes, I hear, but I think maybe the challenge may be elsewhere. But you've asked a question: how do we build up employees even in these circumstances? Because we can't ignore them. We can't say that these are people who have the government has failed them and it's not our fault. I don't think we'll get away with that. Wow. I think there are various measures that people have taken. Number one, many organizations, and I think this is something that has become less of a feature, but many of the organizations in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, even in the 90s, had this notion of gratuity pay, where for long service employees, people who had served for a long time, there would actually be a recognition that as somebody is leaving, there is something that we would give you. Now, one may argue about whether it was enough, but it certainly was something that showed that we appreciate your long service to the organization. So I think that's one thing that we can try to do, because currently the way our Employment Act does it, it basically says that if the employer has been remitting NSSF, then there is no service pay that is required to be paid. So long as the employer has been remitting the 400 bob for NSSF, there is no service pay. And I've seen the challenge that brings with employees, because people genuinely think they're entitled, but the new law doesn't recognize that. And maybe it's not to necessarily change the law, but maybe to ask employers, what can you do? I mean, what kind of things can we encourage employers, like allowing them to deduct certain things from their profits and losses that can go towards employee welfare for the long term. These are some of the things that can be done to make sure that guys get off on better footing as far as that goes. The other thing that employers can do to help employees, and I'm privileged that I am part of an organization which many years ago, the senior partner at our firm, Anne Bogo, and a few other lawyers came together and set up a SACCO, an independent SACCO for employees. Now, of course, there's the LSK SACCO, but the LSK SACCO has a large group of members, and there's a feeling, okay, we're a bit far removed. I guess it's also a Kenyan perception thing. Will I know the person who is lending me? Will they understand my needs and that kind of thing? So this SACCO, which is called Jachin SACCO, actually serves the employees of these various law firms. And it's been brilliant. I attend AGMs. I was at the AGM earlier this year. At that AGM, somebody who is my employee is actually the one taking a decision if I make a loan application as a partner. It's a really good thing, because it keeps you humble and realize that we all need to respect each other as far as that goes. So I think
I was just laughing because I was like, there's an opportunity for payback. But it's on a light note.
Yeah, but the point is that an employer can take that kind of measure with a view to allowing for employees to have some kind of how do you call it, of cushion during tough times, or when because we've seen guys who perhaps are not earning much money, but the SACCO system is such that if you are consistent, you're then able to achieve your dreams. You might be on minimum wage. You might be on maybe say 20, 30,000 shillings a month, which is still something to appreciate for, but it may not enable you to put up that house you wanted to put up in Makueni, for example. But then you're able to save up at the SACCO and finally borrow. And the deductions are made from your salary, and the SACCO knows that this is a law firm that was involved in setting it up. So I think that's one way of doing it. And I think a third way that organizations can help their people is by way of allowing for support in terms of career development. Just this week, I was speaking to a senior lawyer in this country who was, there's a matter which I'm handling. So he sent somebody, and when I was speaking to him, he said, I told him, because I assumed that this was somebody who works as a clerk in his organization. So I said, yeah, but thank you for sending your clerk. And then he told me, no, Kimathi, this gentleman started here as a clerk, but has been able to study, acquire a law degree, go to Kenya School of Law, and now is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Wow.
And I can also testify we have one person like that who I've been privileged in the last 4 weeks to be sending him some assignments to assist me with, because he works outside Nairobi and he's able to support as far as that goes. So I think another way is for employers to ask, how can we develop our people so that they're not always, they are where they can be, not always where they are. Another one which I've seen government actually do is allow for people who have served for a long time to allow opportunities for even allowing, say, people within their families and that kind of thing to come and do on-the-job training and that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, there is a community in this country where particularly when they are looking at hiring the people who are very sensitive positions, there are people providing security to them, people providing like domestic care to them. If, for example, as say I was raised and somebody was the one who raised me, the house help who raised me, when I get a child, I'll go to her and say, I mean, I trust you. Could you make a recommendation? And sometimes you find that people are able to.
Oh no, you've got a mute. You've been muted.
Sorry, they're able to support other family members through that kind of thing. So I guess those are some of the things that can be done as far as remuneration goes. But obviously, you know, I'm not the expert. There's Audrey, there's Angela. They're the guys who fully understand this thing. And I've just been privileged as I listen to them, because there are things I'm appreciating about my own workplace and things that I need to change. I mean, like Audrey's thing about what was your last salary? I mean, I can tell you for a fact, like Audrey, like an employer, if somebody comes to me and they say that they want to take a lower salary than where they were, I'm like, what exactly did you do at that place? What are you running from? And to be honest, we've been hurt once because of that. But I think that's not necessarily because we accepted the person because he was taking a lower salary. I think that's because we didn't do our referral checks well, where you actually ask the hard questions. But yeah, I can hear you. I mean, like I'm saying, I'm learning out of this.
Okay, so I would like to add on something. You know, this medical cover we pay, we should work with our employees as partners. Yeah, we should show them that we are making this money for us. Yeah, so the bigger the cake, the more everybody gets.
Exactly.
So let's not learn to just be spenders. You know, it's like the bad wife who waits for her husband at the end of the day to fall asleep, then they take money from his wallet. Nikama, they are not the same unit. You know, we should be like that with our organizations. We should show the organization that, hey, it's like a mother and father with their kids, that if here are our cars, if we take care of these cars well, yeah, like we don't drive them crazily, we won't have a big bill, a mechanical bill. They will last longer, they will serve us longer, so we will have money for other things. So even when it comes to medical, we can think of it in the same way. We can think, instead of giving this to an insurance, a medical insurance, and I know if the medical insurance people are here, they'd probably take me off air, but I have worked with a government parastatal which was not working with an insurance provider. We had a fund. We would allocate so much money to medical every year, and then it would staff would pick money from it when they're sick. So they would write letters of indemnity to the hospital, like if you're hospitalized, and then we would be given outpatient money in our salaries every month, a certain amount. So you see, if you don't get to use, if you all get to use the fund properly, like you don't go to hospital for minor things like colds and things, at the end of the year, you find, oh, you still have a good amount of money. You can actually invest it in a fund manager.
That is so interesting. And I'd like to hear more about that.
Fund manager, and you just keep a small amount. You just keep a small amount, maybe for, you know, the cases that come up. Then now the rest with a fund manager that can be released maybe in 2 weeks or something if there is an issue. And you make your organization money instead of making other people money. And then they come and give you all their conditions. They're like, if you pass 300,000 limit, you cannot get this. If you have this condition, it's chronic, I don't know, you can't access that. None of that crap happens. You have
hold that thought. I would like for us to tell us more about that, and also give Angela an opportunity to talk about the models, the employment models, if it's equity, if it's that kind of thing. And in relation to this concept, there's a guy called Simon Sinek. I know some of us guys probably know him. He talks a lot about leadership and trust, and I think start with why is what he's known for. But he says, like, his company, all his employees know that they are employed for life. And I had the first one, I'm like, wait a minute, like you can, it's easy to laugh because guys are like, it's Monday, here in the job. But we're gonna come back to that. For now, I want to read, just allow me to read the questions. So Julie Mokami asks, how can the HR department offer support for beneficiaries of a deceased employee post the organization's obligations, payment of benefits? Perhaps give an example of an already working system. That's a good question, Asante, Julie. So how can the HR department offer support for beneficiaries? And then Justice Deyugs asks, is it good to compliment your employer in regards to her or his dressing? I'm sorry, that's a funny question. Not in a bad way.
It's so fundamental nowadays.
I know. So Justice, I'm not laughing at you, but I'm laughing at the context because these days the political correctness is at a very different level, and also sensitivity of people. So that's a good question. So is it good to compliment your employer in regards to her or his dressing? So the first question, how can HR department, maybe that one would be for Angela, and then on the issue of complimenting your employer would be to maybe Audrey, you could pick it up, or you guys could figure out the one that.
Maybe the lawyer.
Yeah.
Maybe Kimasi tell us the legalities of that.
Traffic these days. And then Frida Marangu, Karibu Frida. Frida asks, Angela, what percentage increment would you recommend one to ask for when negotiating the salary? That's a good question. Akwana Mahero says, very good discussion, very illuminating. Question is to Angela and Audrey. A lot said on what employer can do to make the workplace attractive, but also keen to know what is the employee's role in being happy in the workplace. Ooh, good one. And then, so the question on the employee's role in being happy in the workplace, and I guess it ties back to what Audrey had talked about personal mission and goals, but she'll tell us more. And then an additional question to Angela is organizational development is key. Any further ideas on the strategy to be employed by startups and family business in not just sourcing for talent, but also retaining talent for the short to medium term as a startup? So any further ideas on strategy to be employed in sourcing and retaining talent from short to medium term? And then Felix asks, my pressing question that requires a discussion, is it a good idea for the government to allow youth to attend a PSC internship program, then after a year they are thrown away and a new group are in? Is PSC Public Service Commission?
Yes.
It is, yeah? So maybe, I don't know if this is for Kimathi or maybe, or Audrey. All right, guys. Oh, maybe we could start.
I guess we can tackle Julie's question first, because this one's actually quite difficult to answer because it really depends on the organization and what they have in place. So for most organizations, after an employee is deceased, they'll make sure that they have some terminal benefits that they pay to the next of kin and the like. Some organizations, maybe just depending on, how much they valued the person who has deceased, may put up something such as an employment offer for someone else or continue to support them for a period of time. But I do know, so most organizations will probably work with, what do I call it? Is it like a WIBA, your in-place insurance for maybe a death that happens, and make sure that, all of your employees are covered, so that then if someone is deceased while working for the organization, the family at least gets maybe something between 6 to 12 months of that deceased person's salary. So it really depends on the organization, because that's some type of insurance they would put in place to make sure that then, they take care of their employees' families in case of that, yeah.
And then on the question of, I think it was Julius who asked about the dressing of is it good to compliment your employer in regards to her or his dressing? Let's say one of the employees wants to compliment maybe your boss or yourself as a representation of the employer. So how does that work out? Is it good?
I guess it depends on the context and also your employer. If you're in one of those workplaces where your employer is unapproachable, perhaps not, or where they're just not the type of person who you can have a human conversation with, I don't know. It's really depends on your environment, your context, your relationship. But generally, there should be nothing wrong with that. No, that I mean, just tell Kingwa she looks really good today.
But unfortunately, now there are so many things to do with sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And then women are harassing men. That question was from a man.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate that women, us both ladies, are harassing young men nowadays. So imagine if they tell a lady that she's smart. If she didn't have any thoughts about anything, then those thoughts start getting in there, in between your work relationship. Then I think it's better just to keep it to yourself. I think it's better just to keep it to yourself.
Yeah. I like that wisdom.
Yeah, but guys, it is so complex. I mean, I guess everyone has been in organizations where people who in the organization start dating and end up getting married. I mean, we also need to recognize that fact that it's there. But I do appreciate that it's, first of all, it's situational. And I think it's important for me just to put out there the matters to do with sexual harassment, because by Kenyan law, there is actually prohibition at sexual harassment. And the Employment Act provides that if you have more than 20 employees, you need to have a sexual harassment policy in place for your organization. Oftentimes, the way that sexual harassment is considered is where there is a superior subordinate relationship, where it can be taken advantage of. But as between peers, not so much. Although the reality is that even if we are peers, and we have 4 male managers and 1 female manager, and we keep making suggestive comments, we might be peers, but certainly she won't be comfortable in that environment. And I guess vice versa applies, that if I were a male manager and there were 4 female managers making those comments, I might have issues with that. Although guys keep saying, well, men, no, don't worry, men know how to hang with it. But I think the reality is that it's not just about the relationship between the people, but about the culture that you're creating. But also, I think the way that Angela answered it was quite wise, because there is healthy complementing of each other because you're in each other's space. For people who are working 40-hour weeks, likely that means out of your waking time, because I mean, a whole week, if you're talking about 24 hours in 7 days, is 168 hours. If out of those 40 are being spent in the workplace, that's a significant amount of time, and you can't dehumanize that relationship. But I think the question is how to be respectful as far as it goes, but also not for it then to color the employment relationship, because say an employer who, and I mean, some professions are harsh. I mean, you go to professions like modeling and marketing, just because you're going out there. If I'm an employer and I come and I say, wow, you look very nice, and then I look at the other colleagues and I say, well, not so much to say about everybody else, that can be harmful. Yeah. That kind of thing. And I'm not going there. I know there's a politician who made some comments. I'm not going there. I refuse. There is a level of wisdom in which it is used, because not all professions are that way. Then also, you also need to look at the age dynamic of people. At what level you find that with age, hopefully maturity comes, and people are able to take compliments and criticisms with a more balanced perspective. So there's also that carries there. But I think a lot of this, and I know that both Audrey and Angela have handled this, a lot of these things help when organizations retreat and talk. So like, for example, we other than this year, for the last, I think, 3-4 years, we've had team building exercises. And the guys who've been doing our team building for us actually help issues to be brought out for the organization. And I remember like last year, I remember my partner really taking a keen interest in what the feedback that was given about her, because people say, hey, well, this one, please stay away from in the morning and that kind of thing. So she actually took it on board, but because it's in an environment where it's even a third party bringing it out, because I mean, you can imagine if it's me who is the moderator, I'm her partner, and asking, okay, now you tell me genuinely what you think about her. Maybe it wouldn't be as honest as where we've retreated and you're having a third party bring it out. So I think the tools of what one would call team building are helpful in developing a culture that is healthy, because it's not, I don't think it's the compliment as such, it's the culture, the intricacies that are created. Is it that when I compliment, I'm guaranteed that I'll get a raise or I'll be saved, one and the other? Because you see, it's those kind of things that are there. And sometimes, I mean, human beings levitate towards what one would call positive energy. So if you're receiving positive compliments, you're more likely want to work with this person, you're invested in this person, as opposed to somebody who says nothing. Hakuna kitu unasema hapa. So, and then it now begins looking like it's a bias as far as it goes. Allow me just to make quick comments on that question about that Mukami asked regarding what employment places can do for people who are deceased. I think, first of all, it begins at the planning level. I know we as a law firm have been called into organizations to raise awareness on estate planning, because it's not just the employee who needs to look at the organization, the employee themselves need to organize themselves properly. So for example, I've got married and I had made certain nominations of my benefits. I need to go back and update them and say, I had put my beneficiaries as my mom, my dad, but now I have a wife, I have a child. So you see, that's an employee. The employer has done what they can. They have put in place an insurance policy, but you as an employee have not gone and updated that kind of thing. So I think planning is an important thing. Let people know that they need to organize themselves so employers can be the ones who open the door. Secondly, put in place things like insurance policies, life insurance policies as an example, and some of them are able to pay out handsomely. We have like high-risk employees, employees who travel quite a bit and that kind of thing, who can be put on those. A third thing that people can do is also look at professional organizations. So like we as advocates, we have the Advocates Benevolent Association. So for lawyers who pass away, we have a system by which their children are paid for school fees and that kind of thing. Maybe not everyone, but there is certainly a level of support that is given to advocates who pass away from the ABA. And we pay it every year. When we're paying for our practicing certificate, we pay for subscriptions for the Advocate Benevolent Association, which has got its own independent board. And then finally, and I've seen this is in government, where people pass away, especially in the course of duty, I've seen organizations try to make work openings for nuclear family members, such that, for example, if you've lost the breadwinner, are we able, like if you have a son who has turned 20, 21 and has been looking for a job, can we find a way of them accessing an employment opportunity to continue supporting the family? So those are some of the things that I would think of.
Thank you so much, Kimathi. There's a question for Angela about what percentage increment would you recommend one to ask for when negotiating the salary? And then the other question was, what role, what's the employee's role in being happy in the workplace? I think there was one last one.
That was for Audrey. I've seen it's for Audrey.
Oh, that's for Audrey, yeah? Okay. And then the strategy for startups to retain talent. So three questions for Angela.
Let me do in terms of your pay, I think the first thing you have to do is know your own worth. Everybody's job, everybody has a worth. And you typically, know what it is you want to be paid. The second part would then be understand the role. So for every organization, there's something that Audrey said very clearly. if they've defined this role at a certain level and that role demands to be paid 150,000, it should be paid 150,000. So for yourself, in terms of negotiation, I don't think you should go at it thinking of a percentage in mind. Is to really first figure out where is this role, do a little bit of research, by reaching out to a couple of colleagues across organizations, HRs, who might be your friend, and they can give you a range. Then within that range, you then pick a number, pick your highest number. I think for me, the biggest worry is that women tend to be underpaid just because they don't negotiate. And you just take the pay that you're offered. So negotiate hard, stick with your number, know your worth, know that what you're bringing to the job in itself is of value, you're valuable, and then work with that. And then also figure out what is your backup. As long as you have some clear backup about what skill set you're bringing to the job, so you're negotiating more about the value you're adding to the organization and less about the number.
Right.
What about the question of what strategy to use in not just sourcing for talent, but also retaining talent for the short to medium term as a startup? How does one retain talent?
So talent retention, I think some of the things that startups and small businesses typically do is give you a good career trajectory. In fact, if I was starting out in my career, I'd start out in a startup, because at the beginning, you really don't know yourself. You don't know what are your passions yet. You haven't really discovered yourself. But in a startup, you get to work across several functions, really understand the organization, really understand business, and really build up on your experiences. So that's actually one way that startups really retain people, because they allow you to define your career. They allow you to define your role. They allow you to experiment. So all of those things actually matter. So in comparison to then, larger organizations that will retain you with pay and benefits and all those things, such as mortgages and pensions. So startups, generally for them, it's really, you should think about it as a career builder. Think about it as a place where you can really develop on-the-job learning, expose people to networks. I can think about my first role at Cellulant. I was very green, but right off the bat, you're going to sell to CEOs. These are people who are levels and levels ahead of your own experiences. So you learn a lot. You're out of your depth most of the times, but you learn a lot. You gain expertise, and that's valuable for your future career. So for startups and for people who are joining startups, I think you should think of your career from a long-term horizon and say, I am gaining this in this stage of my career, and this is how it will apply in future. And also one other thing that I've found that startups do very well is autonomy. When you come into the job, because you're fewer, there are no bureaucracies, maybe it's a flat structure, maybe you're 7, you're 10, it means that you get to make decisions very quickly, and almost as you don't have to report to too many people. That really matters. So especially for millennials, Gen Z, having autonomy in your job really matters, because it also helps you to build mastery, build your confidence, you're able to express yourself better in the organization. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And also, as Audrey said, that you also feel that you're important. Just adding to what you said, Angela. Thank you.
Yeah.
So very much. So we have 2 minutes to 5. I'm going to ask if we can just push till about 5 minutes past 5. Audrey has.
There was a question that Audrey was answering, I think, about
employees being happy. Yes. No, I'm just getting people's permission for us to go till 2 past 5, so that we can give Audrey an opportunity to answer. She has 2 questions. The one on the employee's role in being happy in the workplace. And also you can answer the question from Felix about my pressing question about the whole issue of the internship program after a year. I also see there's a question from Stephen who says, suppose an employee feels that they've been treated unjustly, where can they find a lawyer? Because again, at the moment, our judicial systems have the rich easily navigate their way out, and so most likely the company has advantage over the poor employee. Mr. Stephen Nganga, one of the reasons we are excited to bring this series to you is to give you the opportunity to access a legal firm, a very highly reputable legal firm, one of the best in the country, actually the best in the country, which is Musyimi and Company Advocates. I'm going to share their contacts over here, and you can just feel free to get in touch with them and they'll give you more advice. So Audrey, yes.
Okay. So about the employees being happy in the workplace, we mentioned earlier that some of what causes unhappiness is that your goals and your personal goals and that of the organization might be incongruent. They might not be aligned. So it's important to basically spend time discovering yourself, who you are, what it is you like, what problems disturb you, what problems do you want to solve. Yeah, and then run with that. So come up with your goals. Definitely find your goals and chase them. And also come up with a plan on how you are going to achieve your goals. Yeah, let's say you want to be a senior manager in a certain industry, in a certain number of years. How do you plan to reach that goal? Okay, will you just depend on the organization to plan for you? You know, when they are going to promote you, when they are going to take you for training, when they are going to present the opportunity for you to speak about getting into a new opportunity, or for you to present an idea of a new product that might propel you forward, you know, you need to take charge of your own career. Just know that your career is your own baby. It's not your organization's baby. They're not responsible for your career. They are selfish in that they just train you on the stuff they think you need to execute for them. Yeah.
You said their parents.
yeah, they're parents. But then these parents want you to basically maybe do medicine so that you can look good on them. But you want to be in media. You know and you know that you need to be in media. So you need to make efforts to get training in media, to get to grow your network in media, to get exposure to media and to start growing in media. You understand? So don't wait for your organization's budget for training. Maybe they're even training you for stuff that you don't want. I have had tales of people, like there's somebody who was working in a bank, a well-recognized bank, and they knew that for where they are going, they need a particular course, and it is in a university in India. So what they used to do, they used to take their leave to go and do exams. They would self-study, then now they would take a plane, they would pay for themselves and go to India to do the exam so that they could earn those IT certifications so that they could get on. And when they finished, now they were able now to go to a much better organization that could pay them, you know, like 3 times what they were earning before. Yeah, but unfortunately, some of us do not chase our dreams with, you know, with gusto, with inspiration. It is like, oh, okay, all right, and the organization is bad, you know. We just like whining instead of taking charge of our career. So please, I would urge you to take charge. Then there are some organizations also that you will find whatever you do is just not working out for you. You're trying to be positive. You're trying to have your goals and to chase your goals on your own terms, but then it is just a toxic environment. They are not like the family that God planted you in, where you cannot choose your brothers and your sisters. Yeah, you can at one point actually choose the people you work with. If you realize that, hey, these people are the wrong mix of people to be working with, please remove yourself and go work elsewhere. Somebody said a job is not a marriage. Yeah, kindly issue your divorce notice and leave.
You know,
All right.
there's two strong things you've said. First of all, relating the analogy of job and marriage.
Yeah.
First of all, we have to recognize that there are people who struggle even living bad marriages. There are so many stories of people who've died because of that. And also, when you talk about the people who whine rather than taking charge of their dreams, I understand their struggle. I think I've been there. I feel that our space, and I like that how we've been talking about the culture, our space does not encourage dreams and dreaming. And I don't blame them, because dreaming, following your dream is, whew, like we need another hour. So I understand that. I really like everything that you said, Audrey. I love the idealism that you brought to this discussion, the reminder of the role of the organization. And also, Angela, just talking about that it's a very, a company, an organization is the approach, the concept of structure, and recognizing that it doesn't have to be complex, but once you recognize that this is a body, all the parts have a role, throw them in and let them play. I found that so profound. And as well as Kimathi with just a very thick and concise understanding of the employment relations and the employment, what is needed really for a contract, and all the things that one has to keep in mind. Guys, this has been so humongously, amazingly educative for me. I hope it has been as well for our participants.
Amazing.
And I'm going to give you guys 1 minute, our panelists, just to give their closing remarks. I'm so sad that this conversation has come to an end, but yeah, so just we can have closing remarks, and then yes, and then on to the next time. So yes, Audrey, we can go with Audrey, and then Angela, and then Kimathi.
Okay. As one of my closing remarks, I will just answer this question that is here about is it a good idea for the government to allow youth to attend a PSC internship program, then after a year they are thrown away and then a new group is in? Well, I think the government is really trying to help the youth of Kenya. You know, the youth in Kenya are very many. Kimathi, about how many youth do we have? Like, out of every 10, how many youth do we have? Out of every 10 people?
So youth is 18 to 35. So you're probably talking about, I'd say somewhere between 35 and 40%, and it's growing because you have another batch of 18-year-olds joining us. Even though the 35-year-olds are moving out, there are many more 18-year-olds coming in than the 35-year-olds exiting. So I'd suggest somewhere between 35 and 45%. A country like Uganda, I think they're probably at 55%. They have a huge youth bulge.
Yeah, so you can imagine there are so many youth. It's like a marching army. They're coming. They are waiting for us to leave so that they get in. You know, we're already being told
Is coming.
they were on a spotlight. You're the old ones. Get out. Want to get in there and work. So the government is really trying to help this youth by coming up with initiatives like telling companies that they can give them tax rebates if they take in interns, and also coming up with that PSC internship program. And that one is basically to give you exposure to the world of work, because I have worked with some interns in that internship program, and it is phenomenal. They really do get to grow in a big way. So I don't think that the government really throws people away. It just creates space for more people to get the same kind of training, you know, so that they are able now to launch into their careers. Because previously they did not have any experience, you know, that we could quote as experience. But after this internship, they now have that experience. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, you can tie that in with your final remarks.
Oh,
and also
okay.
what you have going on in your organization that people can participate in for the next time.
Okay, so I will post some links here so that you can network with me. I'm on all social platforms. And I also have an ebook that I have written about this topic that we are discussing today, because it's one of my passions, just making sure that people get to, or rather professionals get to a place where they are happy, they are engaged, they are productive. So you can look it up on this last link. And I do career coaching, I do CV writing, I do LinkedIn revamp. We do write awesome cover letters that get you just called for that interview. And we work with you in preparing for the interview once you get an opportunity. And the beauty with what we do is that we get you results in a relatively short period of time. For most of our clients, it's within an average of 30 days. You get several interviews. So if you're really seriously, keenly looking for interview opportunities with serious companies, not just any company, you want a job that will reward you well, we're the go-to people, and you're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Audrey. You have been amazing. We loved having you here. I've gained so much, and I love your idealism and your determination to hold on to it. Yes, Angela, what are your final really remarks on this topic? And what are you up to that people can get involved in?
I'll say nothing on behalf of my company. We're not hiring yet.
But get 1,000 CVs sent in.
Yeah, but generally, actually, for me, my closing remarks are just to say thank you for having me on this panel. I've actually learned a lot from Audrey and Kimathi myself. It was such an insightful session. So as much as I gave, I received a lot. So I'm also very happy to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. Ping me for any further questions. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much. We were honored to have you. I love your brain. I love the way you think. So guys, if you're looking for someone to help you in your organization in terms of people and business development, be sure to get in touch with Angela. And yes, Kimathi, Karibu. Maybe you could let people know, because like Stephen had asked, how do they get in touch with you? Stephen had asked, even as you talk about your final remarks.
Yeah, so Kingwa, I think you've shared our contacts as a law firm, but not just law firms. The area of labor law, industrial law, employment and employees relations is an area that has expanded quite a bit. And you'll actually find that the industrial court, it's now called the Employment and Labor Relations Court, is very sensitive to employees. In terms of filing fees, it is nominal, the filing fees that are paid. In terms of jurisprudence, they've been quite supportive of employees. So I would say that Stephen shouldn't worry about getting representation. I think where there is a challenge is because of the backlog. Because you have a huge backlog. So you file a case now and the earliest date that you could get is probably early 2022. That can be quite disheartening for somebody who is looking to recover their rights. But I think if he's considering, I think there's adequate grounds for him to have optimism if his case is a good one. For me, closing remarks, I think my mind has been blown away. Kengwa, thank you so much for the hosting. Audrey, I've just listened to you. I will be a customer in terms of CV writing. One of the challenges of being in a professional organization, you look at the CV that you have and you've never touched it up. You wonder, who is this guy? I mean, he looks very green. I mean, your CV is not you. So I probably need to have a sit down with you, Audrey, just to touch up on my CV as far as it goes. Angie, amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know whether you've also shared with Kengwa about the fact that you've also been at the level of not just joining, because you said you joined Cellulant Wet behind the ears, but you've also led operations in more than one country. So it's amazing. I mean, just amazing to see how many hats you've worn over the years, and now you're back here as Group HR. I mean, it's
oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
She's the reason for the success. Guys, you need to get in touch with her if you want to be successful.
Angie oversaw, I think, Zimbabwe and
Wow.
Malawi at a certain point.
Oh my God.
Yeah, mostly Zimbabwe, and managing some projects across Uganda and Tanzania at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's
I
our
stand. We stand.
For me, to also appreciate one particular panelist, there is Akwana Mahero. Mahero actually is an advocate and worked at the firm. And it is quite interesting because labor law was not an area of expertise of mine, but since I took over some of his files, you know, those things they call about accidentally on purpose. So I have developed off that. So I just want to send a shout out to Mahero. Asanti kwa mabakshishi zako, as in I have picked up from those and grown. So I'm so grateful. And yeah, thanks guys. This is great. I really appreciate it.
All right, Asanteni. I'll also look for you guys, Audrey and Angela. Everyone else network, be sure to network. We shall let you guys know about when we'll have the next forum, but this was amazing. Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much, Kimathi, for coming on board and being so generous and brilliant and genius. This was outstanding. Thanks, guys, and all our participants as well, and have a great weekend. And all right, bye.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Justice says, thanks so much. I support your initiative with all. Okay.
All my body parts.
Right. Akwana says, commend you, haha. Thanks. Hats off to your brilliant brain. Oh, thank you, Julie. Julie says, such a wonderful session. I've picked up a lot from private sector HR, given that until recently, I've been the HR department of my employer, which is a government institution. Thank you, panelists and Kingwa. That was wonderful. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Julie, for coming on board, and also even the previous ones. All right, guys, I'm going to end it now, and then we shall touch base later on. Bye, and thank you so much.